The relationship between Arsenal and West Ham fans is not great at the moment. We all know this. We've had a lot of stick on Twitter. We've beaten them twice, so we get a lot of stick. They stole pretty much our best player in Declan Rice. There's been a lot of banter, backwards and forwards. And I know this channel itself and myself and Mark and X have received a lot of hate from Arsenal fans. So the West Ham fans and the Arsenal fans do not seem to get along at all. However, the two clubs, on the face of it, don't seem to have too much of a rivalry. They don't seem like they've got any sort of disrespect towards each other. They seem to have done business before, obviously with Rice, and it seems like we're going to be doing some more business with them. There are three key players that we are inquiring about at the moment. One of which is a long-term admirer, or we are a long-term admirer of, which is Eddie Nketiah. Now, I think the last time we inquired about him, he was worth about 35 to 30 million pounds. Since then, he's gone on to do very well in the Premier League. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to be asking around 40 million pounds for Eddie Nketiah. I mean, if Dominic Solanke is being offered up for around 40 million pounds, I think Arsenal will sit there and say, well, we've got a young player who's got Premier League goals, not maybe as many goals as Solanke, but he's got a lot of goals in him. And if they're offering 40 million for an English attacker, then I see no reason why we can't for someone who's a little bit younger, got a bit more potential. So I think he would probably cost around 40 million pounds. And I don't see this one happening at all, even not really on a loan move. I think that it's probably, to be honest, the media just recycling his name. Is someone that we've been interested in before. Someone that, I wouldn't mind going in for, but I just don't see it happening personally. I just think the amount of money it's going to cost as well. And to be fair, surprisingly, it's not really a massive position for us, funnily enough. You look at Moyes, supposedly he wants a left-sided winger or, left-sided attacking midfielder. He wants a right back and he wants a new centre back. So a striker is pretty low down on the agenda for David Moyes at the moment. You got Mubama, Ings, Antonio coming back, Bowen taking up the striker position. It's a pretty low priority position. So Eddie Nketiah, I don't see happening at all. I think he's just a name that's being recycled by the media. I don't see it happening, but it's worth mentioning because it is being circled around the media. But two players that I think we have a very strong possibility of going in for is ML Smith-Rowe and Reece Nelson. Now, Smith-Rowe is someone that we have talked about a lot on this channel. I think we've inquired about both of them, and that's come from Indie Killer, who is someone who's a very good journalist. He's on Twitter, very reliable. Check him out, obviously, if you haven't done so. And it's also Reece Nelson specifically has been confirmed by X to us. So these are two players that we are very fond of, and they fit the criteria. I mean, I know that Reece Nelson probably plays more predominantly on the right-hand side, but he can play on the left, and I see no reason as to why he wouldn't get the nod there. Benrahma, Fornals, Cornet, all of their futures are in doubt. Paqueta, I don't think he's going to leave the January transfer window. I think he'll probably be able to stay. I know he takes up that left wing spot, but it's very clear to us that with one injury, we are not strong enough in that left-hand side. And for me, the most exciting prospect in that whole list, as we all know, is going to be Emil Smith-Rowe. I mean, he's brilliant. I think that he's got the potential to be, for a decent side. I think probably he's not ready to play for a top six side, or the big six. I don't think he'd get in many big six sides like Liverpool, maybe United, probably not. I suppose I've got Rashford there. City, he wouldn't. As I say, Liverpool, he probably wouldn't. Chelsea, he probably wouldn't either. But then you start going into the mid-table teams of a Newcastle, I think he'd start for potentially. I know Gordon's doing very well at the moment. West Ham, he definitely would get some minutes in a West Ham. Brighton, Ansu Fati, he's probably at that level, from take the big six clubs sort of out of the equation. You look at your West Hams, your Newcastles, your Villas, your Brentfords, and you start to see maybe more potential for him to get some minutes. But I think he's definitely suited to those sorts of clubs. Like I say, he's very direct. He loves to run at players. And when he first started for Arsenal, he was an absolute world beater. He was doing brilliant in the Premier League, and then he just lost his spot because Martinelli, let's face it, he is the better attacker. And I think that, I think that he has a lot of potential. He's still quite young. I think he's only like 24, 25. Just double check that. But yeah, he's around 24, 25. Reece Nelson, actually, someone that I did not think was as young as he is, but he is also 24 years old, which is quite interesting. And Smith Rowe is 23 years of age. So he's actually younger than I thought. I think Arsenal are in a position at the moment very similar to us in that we have a lot of players that we don't think are good enough to be rotational players. Arsenal are probably in our position where they think to themselves, not only does the first team need a little bit of improving, but also, the fringe players aren't actually good enough for them. I mean, they're in a title race. I say that very, very quietly, but they're in a sort of a title race. They need players who are going to be able to come in and do a job as well as their first team if they're going to be able to compete in the Premier League, because look at the squad depth other teams have around them. So these fringe players that we think, maybe they won't sell them, they're quite good. They're in the same position as us, to where we believe our fringe players are not at the level they need to be for us to challenge for Europe. We need better fringe players. We need players who are going to be able to come in and do a job for us. And currently, we don't feel like our left wingers, right backs, and centre backs are really good enough to come in, step in, and do a job as well as our first team. I did a video with Mark recently, and we were talking about the transfer window. We were saying, if you rate Kudus a 10 and Paqueta a 10 in terms of ability, in terms of how good he is as a player, then what do you rate someone like Ben Rama for now? You should probably rate him about a 6. You probably want someone on the bench who's maybe like a 7 or an 8. Smith Rowe for me is that 7 or 8. Reece Nelson, I actually like him as a player. I think he's a good player off the bench. He's made some very impactful subs for Arsenal. But Smith Rowe for me is just so much better. I think that he's exactly what we want. He's a direct player. He's got the ability to beat a defender. He's got an eye for goal. He's very good at those low-driven shots. And he's got so much potential. He's very young. I think that any one of these players, the only way we'd be able to do it would be on a loan move. Smith Rowe, I think, would be too much. It'd be too much money if we were to get him. And to be honest, I don't think Arsenal want to sell him. I think it would make a lot of sense for Arsenal to say, West Ham, you have him for 6 months, see what he can do. If at the end of the season he hasn't done well for you, we're in the same position we were before. We can sell him in the summer. If he does really well for us, then brilliant. You've got a good 6 months out of him. We then can either keep him as a good player or sell him for more in the summer. I doubt they would let him go permanently. It makes no sense for them. 23-year-old player, all he wants to do is play football. Send him to a club where he's going to play some football. And I think I don't see us struggling to get that one over the line. If I was going to rank all of these transfers in terms of likelihood to happen, I would say that Reece Nelson is probably a solid 7 or 8. Smith Rowe, I think, is an 8, and Nketiah, I think, is a 2. I don't see that happening. I'd say that Reece Nelson's very likely. Emil Smith Rowe is very likely. I would say that Nketiah is very unlikely, to be honest. I don't see it happening, but it's been reported by the media. We've got to address it, but the inquiry in Reece Nelson has been verified by X. That's something that we are, supposedly are very interested in. He's not an out-and-out left winger, but he can do a job there. Jadon Sancho is also somebody that we're interested in, but his wages would be an issue. Smith Rowe would be my first choice. I think he's brilliant. We've done business with Arsenal before. They say they owe us some extra money. So, I mean, they could do us a little favour, give us a little bit of Smith Rowe. I wouldn't be against it. But yeah, I think he can do a job in the midfield, left wing. I think he's a really, really good player with a bright future. And if he goes to, a mid-table club, he's going to absolutely tear it up there. I just don't think he's ready for that, the big 6. If he went to a club like I say, West Ham or Brighton or Brentford or, even somewhere like Palace, I think he would do wonders there. I think give that man some first team football again, let him get a fresh start at a new club, feel like he's, the main man. I think he would do absolutely brilliantly there. So I do think that all of these, if they were to happen, would be loan moves. Obviously, we know we need to sell before we can buy. I know that Fulham are interested in Benrahma. I think we're going to potentially sell Benrahma and Fornals, maybe even Cornet as well. So a left winger is definitely at the forefront of what we want to do. So Smith Rowe and Reece Nelson are definitely ones to keep an eye on. And I think they would do very well for us if they were to come. But Nketiah, I think, is very, very unlikely at this stage. Arsenal need a new striker. I think they would probably leverage Nketiah in that deal, unless they wanted to loan him out to us, which again wouldn't make too much sense, because I think Antonio, when he comes back, will be ahead of him, and so will Bowen at all times. So yeah, let me know what you think below. Will we get any of these players? Obviously, I think if we sign one of them, it will be one of them, not two of them. And I don't think we're after a striker. So it looks like it's between Smith Rowe and Nelson. Which one of them would you guys prefer? Do you think they're likely? Do you think it's going to happen? Let me know in the comments down below. Stay tuned for some more transfer news. As we always know, January is a massive, massive time for West Ham at the moment. And for the channel itself, this is where we get as many videos as we can out to you guys, get our little insights from X, who's obviously as reliable as possible. This is the time as well to get a bit of Patreon. You know, if you're bored of hearing my voice, which I'm sure many of you are, and you just want to, you know, look at the facts for yourself, Patreon, it costs £5 a month. It's a brilliant website. Not only do you get the podcasts and, you know, all that sort of stuff, you get exclusive transfer news, which of course we bring to you on the channel for free. But you can also go to Patreon if you, like I say, if you're bored of hearing my voice, which I know some of you probably are. You can go there, look at it for yourself. It's reliable. X is always ahead of the curve, probably 2 or 3 days before anything's even released. He knows about it. So check that out, and I'll see you on the next one.